This is the Tree of Life, Season 21, Chapter 6. In this episode, we will be talking about how renunciation causes partial recursion, instead of infinite recursion. In infinite recursion, the convoluted paths, which descend from the initial negation, contain within them a subsequent negation, which leads to another convoluted path, and so on and so forth. In the past, we have called this recursion infinite, because each nested substitution event leads to sublimation, and verbalization, and acquiescence. But typically, it is called infinite recursion, because each substitution event leads to sublimation, and verbalization, and eventually, causal reordering associated with time parsimony in the integration of all those paths. The alternative is produced by renunciation, described in the last episode, which I will now integrate as partial recursion. To reiterate this point, imagine you are driving down a road at high speed. Your driving deteriorates, and you accidentally cause a car accident on the highway. At each negated impulse leading up to that path, there are convoluted paths nested in path parsimony, which are each made manifest in the particular organization of the objects contextual to the vessel in each higher nested path. Thus, the other drivers, assuming you do not survive the crash, will remember each of those negated impulses as if they lead, ultimately, to acquiescence. This assumes you do not survive. But let's say you do survive the crash. You may remain on path parsimony, which includes all those negated impulses, as if you sublimated and ultimately did not act on them. You remember somehow managing to sublate your way through the accident without catastrophe. Yet, despite this, all those around you recall time parsimony, which means there must be a causal reordering retrospectively to ensure that you survived the crash, yet remain on path parsimony. Now, what if instead of merely initially negating, leading to sublimation, you follow with renunciation? That is, in the midst of a substitution event, there is infinite recursion. This means that ultimately, you remain within the same vessel, though your objects of consciousness referential to your self-representation may be disconnected from the objects contextual to the vessel. At the same time, your self-representation remains anchored to the vessel. Renunciation is a form of partial recursion. Renunciation means neither accepting the role of sublimator nor becoming the product of that sublimation as one's self-representation. In effect, rather than a complete causal reordering, one of the nested substitution events, the terminal one, becomes an object subject to the causal reordering by your renunciation, which, in physical substitution for your broken vessel, is linked to the objects referential to your self-representation first, before your self-representation flows into it. Thus, infinite recursion is terminated, leaving one version of you still completing the convoluted path as causality reverses, creating a loop of causality, which only returns to linearity through the connection of that vessel to the self-representation. If you imagine that typically, in a substitution event, the direction of causality flows through the self-representation between the vessel and its objects, and the objects referential to the self. And you imagine that in this case, the vessel is first linked to the objects referential to the self instead. You can see that only in the relinking of the vessel to the self-representation, as the recursion ends through causal reordering, does causality flow in a natural fashion. That's the end of the podcast for today.